themselves. The struggle is against an impending sense of lack of spirituality, an impending sense of meaninglessness, an impending sense of nihilism. And in the heart and center of modernity here in the United States, and in the United States we are at the heart and center of modernity. I think we define modernity. We epitomize that struggle, and we're not the only ones. We in fact saw it in the outcome of the elections last week with the emergence of the neoconservative right. They too claim to be struggling. I don't think we agree with the neoconservatives as to those solutions. But the spiritual struggle is nonetheless universal, and we as Muslims participate in it universally. So there's three things that I want to discuss this evening to hopefully provide us some context by which we can organize our thoughts. I'm not interested in what others say about Muslims, not as a personal matter, as a professional matter in my capacity. We have great civil rights leaders like Ahmed Rehab here, and the great work they do at CARE, Siyasat Tabata, and the audience. I am fully confident in their capabilities in protecting us in our civil rights. And I enjoin all of you to support them every year when you have an opportunity to do so at the CARE banquet, to get in touch with these gentlemen in that civil rights endeavor. But my background is different. I'm not a civil rights leader. I'm an academic. I'm an intellectual at times when I'm at my best. And my concern is ideas. So the thing that I want to talk about three things. I want to talk about what it means to be an American, what it means to be an American Muslim, and how we failed so far to reconcile those things. And then talk about possible solutions. Now, American Muslims, it's a term that we like to talk about. In fact, it's become a necessary term. We seem to need to remind people that we are Muslim. And the only reason we do so is because we feel that our civil rights are under threat. And legitimately so. We legitimately feel that way, and in fact they are. People are trying to curb your civil liberties. People are trying to prevent you from worshiping freely. And in so doing, we have to remind people that we are American Muslims. But why do we invoke that idea of being an American? Why do we invoke that identity? Why do we feel so compelled to do so? Strictly for the reason of protecting your legal rights. We have not yet crossed over into expressing a cultural identity. It's not there yet. And it's up to you guys to articulate that. Now, what do I mean by saying invoking an American identity in order to protect your legal rights? If I ask you, what is America to you? You're going to probably cite the Constitution, and you're going to cite religious liberty, and then you're satisfied. And so long as you're satisfied with that legal religious liberty, that's what you choose to invoke, so you can continue to live your private life. And that's fine, and that's good. It's legally commendable. But it's not socially what we're looking for, and it's not the social struggle that the spiritually minded of you are interested in. There's a sense of alienation in our modern world. There's a sense that things aren't quite right. There's a sense of absence of morality, absence of depth. That's what plagues you. That's what troubles you. And at the moment, you're satisfied. We, as Muslims, are satisfied. And I don't mean to marginalize the non-Muslims here. I think they probably go through similar spiritual questions, even if they come from a humanistic point of view. But that sense of alienation needs to be reconciled. Human beings naturally cannot live alienated lives. We're unhappy people. And it's not part of humanity to be unhappy. It's our desire to be happy. And for Muslims, you achieve happiness through peace, and you achieve peace through a submission to the reality of Tawheed. And Ahmed and I have had long conversations about what exactly Islam means. And oftentimes Islam is translated as submission, but of course that's a very inaccurate and inadequate translation. Islam means giving oneself up to Tawheed, or the reality of the unicity of God. But once again, I don't want to quite get into that, at least not yet, and perhaps not even tonight. Maybe if you take one of my classes on Islamic philosophy or Kalam, we can talk about that. I'm more interested in talking about the United States first. How often do we question what is America? How often do we question its philosophical makeup? How often do we question what intellectual trends converge to create the United States, culturally speaking? And as American Muslims, we're talking about contributing to American culture. What is culture exactly? Culture is the meta-institution by which we organize our behavior. You behave because you derive norms from your culture, and by deriving norms from your culture and behaving according to those norms, you reinforce that culture. That's what culture is. It's the meta-institution by which we organize our behavior. I know when I open a door and walk in, as I think much of it is right now, my eyes are getting bad in my old age. I know if somebody's walking in behind me, I should hold it open for them. It's culturally the right thing to do. I've been taught that, I've been socialized that through our culture. We have yet to make a significant impact on American culture, and for that reason, we remain aloof and continue to feel alienated. And there's a whole host of reasons why that's the case. Some of it is cynical. There are groups out there that are not interested in Muslims participating in this culture, quite frankly, because they're racist or they support certain policies that Muslims may have a different perspective on. Some of that, of course, is our own fault as well. And one of the reasons it's our own fault is because we have failed to this point to understand the philosophical underpinnings of American culture. And what are those philosophical underpinnings? They're twofold as far as I can assess. Socioeconomically, we are a capitalistic society. That seems straightforward enough, but do we ever bother to contemplate what capitalism means? Capitalism was a social theory that developed out of the United Kingdom in the late Enlightenment period, and it was articulated by who is considered the founder of modern capitalism, Adam Smith. Adam Smith argued that society is made up of economic transactions, economic interactions. That we as a society come together due to trade. It's a division of labor sort of thing. I cannot do everything by myself and survive. Therefore, I have to come into a society with others by which I can trade with them and get the things for my basic needs as they get the things from their basic needs. He wasn't the first to argue this. Aristotle argued something like this. Nasruddin al-Tusi argued something like this, as well as Ibn Khaldun. But Adam Smith is considered the founder of modern capitalism in the West. Smith said if you look at society closely, what you see are interactions governed by the rules of trade. And the rules of trade are three. Supply and demand, those two things coming together to regulate price. So price is determined by supply and demand. If you have a high supply and a low demand, things are cheap. If you have a high demand and a low supply, things are expensive, and everything in between. So that's what regulates the financial cost of our interactions. But what regulates our being as individuals? Competition. In a capitalist society where you're competing, you have to compete well. So I often will ask my students, why are you here? Why are you taking my class? Why are you pursuing a BA at DePaul University? They'll often respond, because I want to be competitive. Now, from a Smithsonian point of view, from the point of view of Adam Smith, Smith would say, while trying to be competitive, you're also improving yourself by having an education. So what's good for the individual is good for society as a whole. And this is an axiom of modern capitalism. So we have a capitalistic society socioeconomically, and we know that. You guys already know that. Now, if I were to ask you, however, what governs our ethical relations, I don't think I would find an answer forthcoming as quickly. Does anyone want to take a shot at what our general ethical principle is? Yes?
Deistic values.
Deistic values?
Founders.
No. It's not where our ethical guidelines come from, but thanks for taking a shot, I appreciate it. Utilitarianism. Another idea that came from the Old Kingdom, I guess, that came from England. Jeremy Bentham was an English thinker, another late Enlightenment thinker. And Jeremy Bentham was responding to the philosophical ideas that preceded him. He was responding to social contract theorists like Hobbes, like Locke, like Rousseau, like Kant. And the thing that guided the organizing principle of the philosophical thinkers that preceded Jeremy Bentham was this idea of natural law. In some ways, very closely related to a deistic theology. There's a natural law that governs the universe. There's a natural law that determines the essence of a human being. And I think that kind of logic will resonate with many Muslims, actually. The idea that there's a natural order to the cosmos and a fitra, a natural disposition of the human being. So structurally speaking, between natural law theorists and Muslim legal theorists and social theorists, there's been some compatibility. But Jeremy Bentham had a significant problem with this idea of natural law. He thought it as superstitious as religion. And in terms of philosophical influence, he won. Jeremy Bentham argued two things. He said, look, we live in a scientific age. There's no need for us to be guided by myths, quote unquote, like natural law. What we need to do is quantifiably establish what's ethically good. We need to quantifiably determine what's ethically good. And how do we do that? Whatever provides, he actually argued this for you up-and-coming Muslim